Stamped from the Beginning: The Definitive History of Racist Ideas in America by Ibram X. Kendi is an exhaustive and meticulously researched exploration of the origins, evolution, and perpetuation of racist ideas in the United States. The book traces the development of racist thought from the early days of colonial America through the civil rights movement and into the present, highlighting the key players, events, and ideas that have shaped our nation's fraught racial history. Kendi begins by defining racism as the marriage of racist ideas and racist policies, emphasizing that racism is not merely a matter of individual prejudice, but is deeply embedded in the fabric of American society. He argues that racist ideas have evolved over time, adapting to changing social, political, and economic circumstances, but that their fundamental purpose has remained the same: to justify and maintain the unequal power relationships between different racial groups. One of the central themes of the book is the cyclical nature of racist ideas in America. Kendi identifies three distinct phases in this cycle: the covert racism phase, which lasted from the early days of colonial America through the Civil War; the Du Boisian conscious racism phase, which encompassed the post-Reconstruction era and the early 20th century; and the cosmopolitan color blindness phase, which emerged during the civil rights movement and lasted through the 1960s. Each phase is characterized by a dominant racist idea or ideology, which Kendi meticulously dissects and contextualizes. The covert racism phase, which lasted from the early 17th century to the mid-19th century, was marked by the development of a racial caste system based on the enslavement of Africans and the dehumanization of Black people. During this time, racist ideas were primarily rooted in pseudoscientific notions of racial inferiority and superiority, which were used to justify the brutal treatment of enslaved people and the denial of their humanity. Key figures in this period include Thomas Jefferson, who argued that Black people were inferior to whites and should be kept in slavery, and Samuel Cartwright, a physician who invented the concept of drapetomania, an irrational desire for freedom among enslaved people, and dysesthesia ethiopica, a mental illness that caused enslaved people to be resistant to punishment. The Du Boisian conscious racism phase began with the end of Reconstruction and the rise of the Jim Crow era. During this time, racist ideas became more overt and institutionalized, as segregation laws and other forms of racial discrimination were enshrined in American society. Key figures in this period include Booker T. Washington, who advocated for racial uplift through education and economic self-sufficiency, and W.E.B. Du Bois, who argued for full civil rights and racial equality. Du Bois coined the term color line to describe the divide between Black and white America, and his writings played a pivotal role in shaping the civil rights movement to come. The cosmopolitan color blindness phase emerged during the civil rights movement of the 1950s and 1960s, as activists like Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X challenged the prevailing racist ideologies of their time. This period saw the passage of landmark civil rights legislation, such as the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which aimed to dismantle segregation and guarantee equal protection under the law for all Americans. However, as Kendi points out, this phase also gave rise to a new form of colorblind racism, which sought to deny the existence of systemic racism and claimed that racial inequality could be solved through individual effort and meritocracy. Throughout the book, Kendi provides numerous examples of how racist ideas have manifested themselves in American history. From the creation of the one-drop rule, which defined any person with any African ancestry as Black, to the eugenics movement of the early 20th century, which sought to improve the human race by promoting selective breeding and sterilization of inferior individuals, including many people of color. He also discusses the ways in which racist ideas have been perpetuated through popular culture, such as the minstrel show, which mocked and dehumanized Black people for the entertainment of white audiences. One of the most striking aspects of Stamped from the Beginning is Kendi's ability to connect the dots between seemingly disparate events and ideas, revealing the underlying continuity of racist thought throughout American history. For example, he shows how the eugenics movement, which was popular among many progressives in the early 20th century, was ultimately used to justify the sterilization of thousands of poor people and people of color under the guise of improving public health. Similarly, he connects the dots between the pseudoscientific racism of the antebellum period and the more subtle forms of colorblind racism that emerged during the civil rights movement, arguing that they are both rooted in the same desire to maintain white supremacy. Ultimately, Stamped from the Beginning serves as a powerful reminder of the enduring nature of racist ideas in America and the urgent need for ongoing anti-racist struggle. By tracing the evolution of these ideas over time and illustrating their pervasiveness in all aspects of American life, Kendi provides a comprehensive and sobering account of the nation's fraught racial history. His work is essential reading for anyone seeking to understand the roots of systemic racism and the ongoing fight for racial justice in the United States.